Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Have Your Say video.
Please stop immediately.
And this video is for All Stars 11 episode 4. Now, some of you may have seen I did post about this on my channel, but at the moment I'm currently travelling back to the UK and I'll be away for several weeks. So to make it a little bit easier so I can edit things, I'm going to keep this to be voiceover only rather than my usual craziness on screen with me doing God knows what on screen that I know you all love. But just for ease, I'm going to be doing it like this for the next couple of videos. But I'm back for this Have Your Say, and we'll be going through this week's episode, also going through the results of the Have Your Say poll where you voted on if you agreed with the outcome of the episode. We're also going to be talking about a little bit of contention that happened throughout the episode and afterwards to do with whether people think that the season is rigged for Crystal Methyd. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so let's recap the episode. This is obviously the first of the bracket 2, which is the pink bracket. So I'm just going to quickly go through who's in the bracket. So in alphabetical order, we have April Carry On from season 6. Then we have Aura Mayari from season 15. After that is Crystal Methyd from season 12. Then it's Salina Estides from season 15. Then Silky Nutmeg Ganache from season 11, All Stars 6, and Canada vs. the World. And finally, we have Vivacious also from season 6. I think this is actually quite an interesting group because you've got 2 people from season 6, which is April and Vivacious, and also 2 people from season 15, which is obviously Aura and Salina. So I think it's quite a cool mix. You've got some people that know each other, but then you've also got some people like Crystal and Silky. So it's quite a different mix of queens. So we find out that the main challenge for this week is that they have to work in pairs and they have to do a duet. And there are 3 different songs they can choose from and they're 3 different styles of music. Most of the episode was obviously taken up with the standard stuff of the queens deciding which one they want. Obviously, some queens fighting over which song they wanted, etc. Then they obviously showed the queens rehearsing and doing the vocal recordings. And obviously, some queens struggle. Some queens are really good. They love throwing in that sort of storyline. We all know it by now. But I'm not going to bore you with all the details.
Thank God.
So let's just dive straight into the performances themselves. And the first group up was HBF, which is Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Vivacious. And we're going to start with Vivacious. In general, I will say this group is probably my least favourite of the 3. I just don't think the song captured me as much. And I don't just mean the performances, I mean the actual song itself that they were given just, to me, wasn't as catchy as the other 2, but maybe that's just me. I also feel like this group had the least amount of staging. They had obviously the fan at one point, and they also had the pit crew or dancer members behind them, but so did the other groups, and they also had things like beds and construction things. So this one felt a little bit kind of left out in a way. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to Vivacious herself. I actually love Vivacious. I think her lyrics were really fun. I just don't think that the performance was as strong. RuPaul did say she came across as a bit stiff, and I don't mean stiff in the sense of penis, age, or, brittle knees, because, I'm, kind of pushing 40 myself, so maybe I can also understand brittle knees. She almost looked like she was holding back a little bit. So to me, I think I'd give it a just okay overall, because I think it could have been a bit stronger. In the Have Your Say poll, I think you agreed 47.4% for just okay, which was the biggest portion, but 36.6% for yay, so that's still a decent proportion, but then actually 16% said nay, which is also quite a lot. After that, we had Silky Nutmeg Ganache. As I said, although this wasn't my favourite performance, I think out of the 2 of them, Silky was better. She just had better attitude. I think she was selling it a bit more. Her lyrics were also a bit more fun. I don't think it was the best performance of the night, but I do think it was the better of the 2, so I would give it a yay, but it would be a softer yay than some of the others. In the Have Your Say poll, 58.4% for yay, I would agree. 32.4% for just okay, though, which is almost a third. I would agree, it was, like I said, a soft yay. And then 9.2% for nay. Next up was Dreamin' of Me, which is April Carry On and Salina Estides. And we'll start with Salina. I loved Salina so much. I thought she really committed to it. I thought the staging of this one was great. I loved the 2 different colours. The yellow and the purple was great. I really liked the storyline of obviously these 2 hoes that were kind of sleeping with each each other's men, and I really liked that storyline. I don't know what that says about me, but I liked that storyline.
Because you're a slut.
I thought Salina was definitely the better of the two. I loved how she sold it. She was so funny. Her physicality was really good. Her singing was also very good as well, so I would give it a yay. In the Have Your Say poll, 78.7 said yay. Now, I thought it'd be a bit more than that, but I do agree that it should be yay. Then it was 18.9 for just okay. Again, I think that's a little bit high personally, but whatever. And then 2.3 for nay. Then moving on to April Carry On. I thought April was the weaker of the two, unfortunately, but I think Salina was so good that April just obviously couldn't quite shine as much as that. Also, I think April struggled with the vocals a bit more and maybe her performance wasn't quite as strong, but I really liked what she did. She served face and everything, and I thought she captured the vibe decently well, but it wasn't as good as Salina, so I would say just okay. In the Have Your Say poll, 53.3% for just okay, so probably no surprises there. 36% though for yay, so still a decent proportion, and then 10.6 for nay. And then finally we have the song Hoes Before Bros with Aura Mayari and Crystal Methyd. I really liked what both of them did. I liked this whole construction storyline. I don't quite know how it sort of tied all together, but I liked it. Starting with Aura, I personally felt that she was the stronger of the two in a lot of ways. I think her vocals were better, and I do think that she captured the vibe really well. In terms of the performance, I think Crystal was being more kooky and fun, but I think Aura was just giving a solid performance. I actually really liked what she did, and I thought her physicality was good, but maybe if she had injected a little bit more humor, a bit like Crystal did, it would have been even better. But I still would give it a yay because I really enjoyed it. In the Have Your Say poll, you said 70.3% for yay. I would give it more than that personally. Then 25.9 for just okay, which is over a quarter, and then 3.8 for nay. So I don't know what you were watching, but we obviously were watching different things. And then finally we had Crystal Methyd. I did really enjoy Crystal. Like I said, I think from the performance point of view, although her vocals were not as strong as Aura, because she was being kooky and funnier, I do think in that way it made her more memorable. But in terms of it being a duet in the actual song, I do think she was the weaker in that regard of the two. But I'd still give it a yay because I really enjoyed it. In the Have Your Say poll, again, I was a little bit surprised. You gave 78% for yay, which is a lot, but I actually would have switched that with Aura. I would have given Aura more than Crystal, so I was slightly surprised by that. But I definitely think she deserves a yay. Then 18.6 for just okay, and then again, a weird 3.4% of you said nay. So clearly about 3-point-something% of you just hate this group. And back off, bitch. There's only one hater in this joint, and that hater is me.
Yeah, because you're a bitch.
So I then asked you, who gets the slay? And that's me singing in a verse. And you voted 29.7% for Salina Estidis. Then it was Crystal Methyd with 26.8. And then it was Aura Mayari with 22.9. And then the rest of them were all pretty split after that. I agree. I definitely would give it to Salina. I think she did the best verse. Really enjoyed her performance. She mixed humor, but also with great lyrics. She danced well. She sang well. So she definitely deserved all of the TDs. Okay, so let's move on to the runway for this week, and the category was You Butter Ask Somebody. So butter-themed runways, or I guess just yellow. So first up we have Vivacious. I love this look so much. It kind of to me is giving if the Pope was super camp and gay, which, I mean, let's be honest, they kind of already are. I loved this so much. It looks very regal. Michelle said she didn't like the yellow lip. It was kind of giving me a little bit Bob the Drag Queen on her original season when she had a really block-coloured lip. I thought it actually looked okay in this particular one. I would give this a yay because I really enjoyed it. In the Have Your Say poll, 77.1% gave Mother a yay, and I would agree. Then it is 18.9% for just okay, and then 4% for nay. After that, we have Silky Nutmeg Ganache. This wasn't my favourite. I think the bit where she turned around at the beginning and you saw the writing on the back, that to me looked a little bit, I don't know, homemade or last minute. And then the main bit to me is that the outfit is kind of simple, but the main thing to me was that she was holding the headpiece up the entire time, so clearly it didn't really sit on her head properly, and it was just a bit distracting. Overall, I'd say it's fine, but nothing special, so it'd be a just okay. In the Have Your Say poll, I think you were a bit harsher than me. You said 37.1% for nay, then it was 35.1% for just okay, so pretty close. I think I'd give it a just okay, but towards the nay, and then still 27.7% weirdly for yay though, so it was actually kind of split. After that, we had April Carry On. I really liked the look in the sense that April was talking about her culture, and this is El Gigante, so this is from Puerto Rican folklore. I really liked the concept behind it. I don't think necessarily the execution was as strong as other outfits we've seen. It did definitely look a little bit more simple than some of the others. So although I liked the message, and I think the colours and everything are beautiful, and the way it's done is really nice, maybe compared to the others on a main stage, just not quite as big a splash as some of the others were. But I would give it probably a strong just okay, maybe verging into a yay. In the Have Your Say poll, you said 46.7% for just okay, so the majority, or at least the biggest proportion, 36.9% for yay, but then weirdly 16.4% for nay, so quite a decent amount. After that, we have Salina-esque titties. I really enjoyed this look. With this big collar bit behind her, it was definitely giving me Dracula or like some kind of fabulous vampire, but, you know, in yellow and I don't know, with big tits, I guess. I really enjoyed this outfit. The waist was on point, the tits were on point, the mug, everything. Loved it. The color is amazing. Definitely it gets a yay. In the Have Your Say poll, you also clearly loved it. 76.2% for yay, although I think it should have been more than that. Then it was 21.8% for just okay. And then a weird 2% of you who must be colorblind said nay. And then, penultimately, we have Aura Mayari. I really love this. This is so chic. It's a classic silhouette. I love the umbrella with it. Again, paying a nod to her culture. The color is also beautiful. This kind of slightly pale off yellow. It is so nice. It complements her so well. The mug is also right. Everything is on point with this outfit. I love it. Very regal. Definitely gets a yay. In the Have Your Say poll, I was surprised this wasn't better than it was. So 66.5% said yay. I would have given it a lot more than that. Then 28.1% said just okay. I don't know what you're seeing, but obviously we're seeing something different. And then again, a crazy 5.4% said nay. God knows what you're looking at, but it certainly ain't what I'm looking at. And then finally we have Crystal Methyd. I think this is such a dumb, stupid, but great look. The way that she is literally a stick of butter, also kind of Marge Simpson, kind of, but with different coloured hair. But it's also just so chic. It's a classic silhouette, but kind of made drag. This is such a cool look. I think my favourite bit is when she turned around and she had, I guess, the packaging of the butter on the back. The only slight thing I will say is, to me, I thought it would have made more sense to say salty butter, because we always say queens are salty rather than unsalty. Maybe that was also the joke, but I personally would have been salty because we all know I'm very salty.
That is correct.
But overall, this is a fabulous look. Definitely it gets a yay. In the Have Your Say poll, a staggering 84% said yay. I would agree with that 84% of you. 12.6% said just okay. And then again, I have no idea who this 3.4% of you are. There is 3.4% of you hating everything. Now, I don't know what you're doing, but stop coming for my gig, sis. So I asked you whose buttery goodness runway gets a slay, and you voted 45% for Crystal Methyd, which is almost half, 21.8% for Vivacious, and then 18.9% for Salina. I think I would have to agree, although I thought there were lots of amazing looks this week. I think because Crystal's was just so different to the others, because she literally was butter, but it was also really fabulous, really editorial, just done so well. I think I would have to give Crystal the slay, because if I think back to it, this is probably the runway that I'll actually remember. So we find out they're judging in pairs, which I guess would make sense because it is duets, but I also feel like Drag Race kind of picks and decides when they want to do that. But the ones they decide did win were Aura and Crystal. So I asked you in the Have Your Say poll, do you agree with the top two? Interestingly, 59.1% said yes, but then still quite a big proportion, 40.9% said no. So of that, not that far off, a half of you that said no, I said, who do you think should have been the top two instead? By far, Salina came out on top, and then after that was Aura, and then it was Crystal. But I guess if you were doing it in pairs, if you're saying Salina came out on top, then it would have also been April. But I guess that comes down to whether you think it should be judged in pairs or not. I personally don't think it should have been judged in pairs to be the fairest, although I guess if it's a duet, maybe it is fair. If it was up to me, I probably would have done Salina and Aura as the top two. While I did love Crystal, I just think the other two's performances were better, and I think performance has to count for more than runway. So, Aura and Crystal then lip-synced the song No More Tears, Enough Is Enough by Barbra Streisand and Donna Summer. And we find out Crystal is the winner and therefore gets the extra point. So I asked you in the Have Your Say poll, who do you think won the lip sync in your opinion? You said 69, wink, 0.4% for Crystal Methyd and 30.6% for Aura Mayari. This one was a tough one because I think Crystal only really won because of obviously like the dumb leg thing that she was doing. I also feel like she could have used the leg maybe slightly better than she did. I think Aura just wasn't shown enough to win. I do wonder if it was a kind of, they were slightly rigging it, I don't know, a little bit, because Crystal was doing maybe the more interesting in the sense of it being crazy and wacky performance. But I think Aura was actually doing a cleaner lip sync and more of a controlled dance performance. So I think from that sense, Aura did maybe win, but Crystal definitely captured the attention because of what she was doing with the gag of the leg. And we all know I like a good gag, as your husband said last night. Okay, so moving on to the final two questions. Question 7 was, who do you think will be the top 2 of this bracket and go through to the semis? And you voted Crystal Methyd by far came out on top, and then Silky Nutmeg Ganache. But then question 8 is a little bit different, which is who do you want to be the top 2 and to go through to the semis? Again, Crystal interestingly came out by far on top, but rather than Silky coming out next, it was actually Salina S. Titties. And then it was actually Vivacious in 3rd. So it sounds like you think Crystal and Silky will go through, but you want Crystal and Salina to go through. I definitely agree. I think Crystal by far is going to go through. I think from what we've seen so far, she's also extremely popular. In terms of the second person, I do think Salina has a shot, but Silky maybe just from a storyline point of view and the fact she's been there so many times, I could see the judges really liking her because she's just quite a fun, big personality, but it sounds like she's less popular with the viewers than with the judges. Okay, so moving on to my special poll. Now, I know all of you want to wrap your hands around my special poll. And by the way, poll is P-O-L-L, not P-O-L-E. Take your minds out of the gutter. Now, this is for my Patreons and my YouTube members. If you are interested in getting extra benefits like having your comments featured in my videos, early access to my videos, exclusive content that I don't post on YouTube, check out my Patreon or my YouTube membership, and I'll put links to that in the description. But going through to my special poll, we'll look at what my Patreon said. I asked, based on episode 4, which was this episode, who of the bottom 4 would you give your MVQ point to? And by far, most of them voted for Salina S. Titties with 47%, and then it was Vivacious with 27%. And then in terms of my YouTube members, very similar. They said Salina S. Titties came out on top with 57%, but then interestingly, it was actually April Carry On with 43%. So this was actually quite close between the two, but Salina did come out on top. And I would agree, I'd give my MVQ point to Salina because I think her performance was probably the best of the week and I think she should have been in the top. Okay, so let's move on to the comments for this week, and we'll start with my Patreon comments. So I've kind of grouped these into topics because there's quite a few and I need to get through them. So these ones were kind of more about the queens and the glow-up and looking better. So my Patreon Nikki said, the glow-ups in this bracket are absolutely crazy. Salina looks incredible. And my Patreon Patty, kind of in a similar way, said, what a great episode in my eyes. It was wonderful to see Vivacious and Crystal again. What a glow-up, and April looks absolutely stunning as if she hasn't aged a day since season 6. And I would definitely agree. All of the queens look absolutely amazing. They don't look like they've changed much from any of their seasons. And not just they haven't changed, they've actually looked better in a lot of ways, which I guess you'd understand because it's, you know, money and time and experience. But they all look incredible. I think to me, Salina is maybe the one that is the biggest change because she got the golden boot, if you remember, on her original season for having the worst fashion. And now she's coming back with these amazing looks. So yeah, definitely I think they are all glowing, glowing, glowing. Then moving on, my Patreon Hermit Queen Jude said, Silky and Vivacious were kind of my favourite. Not sure I agree with that, Hermit Queen Jude, but you do you. And then said, Silky did great and Mother was so adorable. I agree, I do think they did well, but personally it was my least favourite of the 3. And then my Patreon Max said, Crystal's growth has been nice to see. In the challenge, her look screamed pop star. I don't know if we'd seen that kind of look in season 12. And I think that's a really interesting observation because Crystal has come back quite different in a lot of ways. I do think she's a bit less kooky than she was on season 12. I think she's maybe slightly more elevated and editorial, but still with a slight kooky edge, as we saw in the lip sync. But I do think it's interesting to see how she has crystallized, some of you could say, into a slightly different version of what we saw on season 12. Then on the topic of kind of lip syncs and critiques in general, my Patreon Deb said, in what world did Crystal win that lip sync? She just flailed around with extra limbs and not enough for it to be really entertaining. Don't hold back, Debs. And my Patreon Lady Nidaria said, Ru saying Vivacious could have tried harder because she was stiff, almost sent me into a spiral. Ru, as if you haven't been doing the same side touch step for the last 13 years. Grrr. I mean, Lady Nidaria, you did not hold back. And I guess I sort of agree, but then again, I feel like you could say that with Ru with anything, because Ru always critiques the queens for like their makeup and stuff, and Ru has not done her makeup probably since about the 1800s. But I do think Vivacious probably was stiff, not just because of age though, but I just think she wasn't quite giving as much as Silky was. In terms of the comments from the Have Your Say poll, there were quite a lot of comments about the actual bracket in general. So for example, people were saying, every single player this bracket is killing it so far. I'm going to be really bummed when only 2 of them move forward. And I agree, I think this is a stacked bracket. So again, like all of them, I'm going to be sad that only 2 go forward, but that's the name of the game. Also, Vivacious came up a lot of times in the comments. People saying things like, fantastic seeing Vivacious back. I want Vivacious on every season. I also really liked the fact that Vivacious is from such an old season. She's an icon of Drag Race with the, Ornacia, mother has arrived and all of that kind of thing. So I'm very happy to see her back. But I do think in this particular challenge, I felt like she was maybe holding back a little bit than what she could have done. And then finally, we're moving on to a bunch of comments that were kind of on the same topic that I thought were quite interesting, which is about people think that there's maybe a bit of riggery to do with Crystal. So for example, the first one says, I think production are just going to push through Silky and Crystal as much as they can. And another comment said, Crystal riggery begins. Another one said Crystal is already becoming the Ginger Minj, I fear. Obviously, that's a reference to last season when everyone felt like the season was rigged for Ginger to win. I'm all for Crystal going forward, but only if she really deserves it. The first episode showed the favoritism for me. Now, this is a really big topic so far. I do personally think maybe there was a little bit of favoritism this episode, because although I thought Crystal did an amazing runway and I thought her performance was good, I don't think she deserved the win personally. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of goes on from here. It will also be interesting to kind of compare it to Ginger's trajectory last season and whether they're going to rig it for Crystal. I do think because Crystal hasn't been back for an All-Stars yet, if she does end up winning, I don't think people are going to be annoyed in the same way they were when Ginger won, because from what we've seen so far, Crystal is amazing, but also this is her first All-Stars, so I think a lot of people didn't like that Ginger won because they felt like it was her millionth time coming back, whereas with Crystal it's not. I also think Crystal is just maybe slightly more popular than Ginger was, so it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out, but I do agree that maybe there is a little bit of riggery going on at the moment, or at least favoritism for Crystal. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think it is riggery towards Crystal, or do you think she genuinely deserved to be the top 2 and also win the lip sync? And how would you feel if Crystal wins every other episode and kind of has a Ginger Minj trajectory? So there you go, there was the Have Your Say for All Stars 11 episode 4. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this bracket's premiere, and how does it compare to last bracket, and what are you looking forward to the most for the next couple of episodes? If you'd like to have your comment featured in my Have Your Say poll, get early access, exclusive content, group chat, loads of other things, shout-outs in my videos, please check out my Patreon, which is my main platform. And also, for a more convenient option, you can check out my YouTube membership, and you can click the join button under any of my videos. It's a cheap and quick way to support the channel, and it does make a huge difference. So check it out, and I'll put links in the description. I'd also like to say thank you so much to my incredible Patreon members. You are all absolutely amazing. I love speaking to you in the Have Your Say polls and the comments and all of that kind of stuff, the group chat. You are incredible supporters and you honestly make this channel possible, so thank you all so much. Please make sure you like and comment on this video because it really does help boost it in the algorithm and promote it to more people. Please make sure you also hit that subscribe button. It's probably the most important thing you can do because it means you'll get notified when I post more videos, but it also just really helps to push and boost the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in the future for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and of course, what? Drama. Thank you so much. Bye.